I didn't plan to grab a stranger's hand that night. In fact, I didn't plan to see my ex-husband at all. But Lagos has a way of serving chaos exactly when you think you're finally safe. It was around 7:30 p.m. at Yaba Market, one of those evenings when the air smells like roasted corn, dust, and bad decisions. I was buying cheap wigs from a roadside stall when I heard that voice. Olivia! My whole body froze. I turned slowly, and there he was. Levi, my ex-husband, the man who once said, "I can't live without you," but almost killed me twice before I believed him. He was standing by the suya stand, wearing the same arrogant smile I once found charming and now found disgusting. 2 of his useless friends were with him, all wearing black like failed gangsters. He started walking toward me. My heart began to race. I dropped the nylon in my hand and whispered, "Oh God." Not tonight. I wanted to run, but the crowd was too tight. I wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. And then I saw him, standing by a fruit stall under the streetlight. Tall, calm, clean-cut, and dressed in a black shirt that looked expensive. He wasn't smiling. He just stood there like someone who didn't need to talk to be noticed. I didn't think twice. I walked straight to him, grabbed his hand, and whispered, "Please, pretend to be my man." He looked at me, eyes unreadable. Then without saying a word, he pulled me close, hand firm around my waist. Levi stopped in his tracks. The stranger stared at him with this quiet power, not loud, but dangerous. Levi's friends exchanged looks, unsure whether to laugh or retreat. The stranger finally spoke. His voice was deep and steady. "Do we have a problem here?" Levi froze, tried to fake confidence, then scoffed. "Olivia, really? You found yourself another one?" The stranger didn't move. He just said slowly, "Walk away." Levi hesitated. The crowd was watching. Someone laughed from a nearby stall, shouting, "Oga, respect yourself, oh." Levi cursed under his breath and stepped back. "You'll hear from me, Olivia," he muttered, pointing at me before leaving with his friends. The stranger released me gently. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, breathing heavily. "I'm fine. Thank you." He looked at me for a moment, really looked, like he was studying my soul. Then he said, "Let's get you out of here." We walked together through the busy street. I noticed people moving out of his way, not bumping into him, not even brushing his arm. It was strange. Lagos people are never that polite. He didn't talk much. He just led me calmly until we reached the main road where a black SUV was parked under a tree. He opened the passenger door and said, "Get in." "It's not safe to walk alone tonight." I hesitated. "I don't know you." He smiled faintly. "You knew me enough to grab my hand." "Touche." I wanted to argue, but the sound of Levi's voice somewhere behind us made my decision fast. I jumped in. He walked around and entered the driver's side. The car smelled like leather, cologne, and something else, power. He started the engine and drove off smoothly, like he wasn't rushing but still in full control. For a while, we didn't speak. Lagos lights flashed across his face. Serious, calm, unreadable. Finally, I said, "Thank you for helping me back there." He nodded. "Don't thank me yet." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He smirked slightly. "People don't usually touch me without permission." I frowned, unsure if he was joking or threatening. "I didn't mean to," I said softly. "I just panicked." "I know," he said. "Next time, be careful who you run to." That tone again. Quiet, controlled, but heavy. I studied his face from the corner of my eye. His jaw was strong, his hands steady on the steering. There was no ring on his finger, no nervousness in his eyes. Just confidence, the kind that doesn't come from charm, but from power. He glanced at me. "You live around Surulere?" "Yes." He nodded and drove there without asking for directions. "How do you know?" He cut in. "You smell like someone who still shops there." I turned to him fully this time. "Excuse me?" He smiled faintly. "Relax." I didn't mean it badly. I just noticed things. His smile didn't reach his eyes. When we got to my street, I said, "This is fine, thank you." He parked quietly. Before I could open the door, he said, "Don't go back to him." I froze. "You mean Levi?" He nodded. "Men like that don't stop until someone stops them." I swallowed hard. "You talk like you've met men like that before." He turned to face me. "I've buried men like that before." My stomach tightened. "What?" He smiled again, almost kindly. "You didn't hear that." Then he handed me a small card. "Call me if he comes near you again." I looked down. No name, no number, just a black card with a single silver symbol. M7. Before I could ask what it meant, he started the car. "Good night, Olivia," he said, without ever asking for my name. The car pulled away, disappearing into the Lagos night. I stood there for a few minutes, staring at the card. My heart was still pounding, my mind racing. How did he know my name? Why did people move aside for him like he was royalty? And what did he mean by "I've buried men like that before"? I went upstairs to my small apartment, locked the door, and leaned against it. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "I hope you got home safe, Olivia." My phone slipped from my hand. I rushed to the window and looked outside. The street was quiet, but parked far down the road under the dim streetlight was the same black SUV. Its headlights flashed once. Then it drove away. Hey viewers, my name is Olivia, and if you're still listening, please click subscribe, because sometimes the person who saves you might be the reason you'll never sleep peacefully again. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The moment he held me, the way Levi backed away, the calm danger in his voice. It wasn't normal. No normal man scares a bully with just one look. No normal man drives a black SUV that's silent. And no normal man sends a message without your number. Something wasn't right about Theodore. Yes, that's what his card later revealed when I searched the M7 symbol online. Theodore Mateo, a name that appeared in whispers. No photos, no social media, just rumors. Import businessman, private security head, silent investor in half of Lagos Island, and one line that made my blood run cold. Rumored to have connections to the underground Mafia circles in Nigeria. I dropped my phone, because the hand I grabbed to escape my ex-husband's violence might just belong to someone 10 times more dangerous. For the first few days after that night at Yaba Market, I didn't hear from him. No calls, no texts, no random black SUV parked outside. It was almost like he had disappeared. Or maybe he was never real at all. I tried to convince myself that everything was over, that maybe God had just used that stranger to save me, and that was it. I even laughed at myself once, thinking, "Olivia, you're so dramatic." Not every mysterious man is a mafia boss. Maybe he's just a kind rich guy. But in Lagos, kind rich guy is a story that never ends well. It started again. I came home late from work. I'd picked up an extra shift at the restaurant where I worked in Surulere, and as I entered my apartment, I felt it. That feeling, that cold, crawling, someone is watching you feeling. I looked around. Everything was normal. The same curtains, the same old clock, the same half-dead plant by the window. Then I noticed the envelope. It was on my center table. I froze. I had locked my door before leaving that morning. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photo, me leaving work that afternoon. On the back, written in neat handwriting, "You still attract trouble." No name, no signature. Just that. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside, a generator, a passing car, a barking dog, felt like danger. By 2 a.m., I was sitting in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife like a fool. That was when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. He's watching your building again. I jumped up, ran to the window, and peeked through the curtain. There he was, Levi, leaning against his car, smoking, staring right at my balcony. I dropped my phone, shaking. Before I could even think, the phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Stay inside." I froze. "Who is this?" I whispered to myself. Then, before I could type a reply, the next message came. "Don't scream when you hear the noise." What noise? I muttered, heart pounding. 5 seconds later, a loud crash echoed outside. Glass, shouting, a car door slamming. I ran to the window again. Levi's car was gone. Only smoke and tire marks remained. Then another message came through. "You're safe now. Go back to sleep." I didn't sleep at all that night. At sunrise, I went downstairs and asked the security man, Baba Ayo Waslio, "Did you see anyone last night?" He frowned. "Yes, small madam. 2 cars, one black, one white. I no see their face well. Only hear shout, then black motor move fast. Did anyone come inside?" I asked. He shook his head. "Nobody fit enter. I lock gate well. So how did that envelope get inside?" When I got back upstairs, I saw it. A faint shoe print by the windowsill. Heavy sole. Too heavy to be mine. I sat down slowly, heart thudding. He had been here. Theodore. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the card. That black one with the silver M7 symbol, and called the number written at the back in small white print. It rang twice. Then that deep voice came through. "You finally called. I asked you get into my house." Silence. Silence. Then he said, "If I wanted to hurt you, Olivia, you wouldn't need to ask that question." That answer didn't help my nerves. I said, "You scared me. You can't just break into people's homes and leave photos. I was protecting you, he said simply. Your ex was planning to come inside. I went quiet. You knew? He replied, I've been watching him since Yaba. I sat on the floor shaking my head. Why? Why are you doing this? Because you touched me, he said calmly. What? That night, you grabbed my hand. You don't touch someone like me unless you're ready to change your life. I almost laughed. You sound insane. Maybe, he said softly, but I don't lie. Then, before I could respond, he added, pack your things. I'm sending someone to pick you up. I stood up quickly. No, you're not sending anyone to me. He chuckled. You think you're safe where you are? I froze. How do you know where I live? Good night, Olivia, he said, and the line went dead. I didn't move. I just sat there, phone in hand, shaking. Was this man protecting me or stalking me? I looked at the door again, half expecting to see that same black SUV outside. Nothing. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The next day, while at work, I was serving food to a group of businessmen when I noticed a familiar face outside the restaurant glass. Levi. He was standing there, smirking, watching me. I froze. My tray almost slipped. He mouthed something through the glass. I found you. I dropped the tray and ran to the back of the restaurant. My manager shouted, Olivia, where are you going? I didn't answer. I was shaking so bad my teeth chattered. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. Stay calm. I see him. I ran back to the window and saw it. The same black SUV parked across the street. Seconds later, a man in black walked up to Levi. They exchanged words. Then the man hit Levi once. Just once. Levi fell like a puppet whose strings were cut. The man looked up directly at me through the glass and touched his earpiece. Then he walked back to the car, got in, and the SUV drove away. My phone buzzed again. You're welcome. I dropped the phone, my hand trembling. Everyone in the restaurant was rushing to the door, shouting, Accident! Somebody just fainted! But I knew better. Levi hadn't fainted. He had been silenced. I waited till evening before leaving work. I didn't go home immediately. I took 3 different danfos, trying to confuse anyone who might be following me. When I finally reached my street, the lights in my building were off. Nipa had struck again. I used my phone's flashlight to climb the stairs quietly. But when I reached my door, I saw it. A shadow. Someone was sitting in the dark. My breath caught. Then I heard that calm voice. You're late. I turned on the light. It was him, Theodore, sitting on my chair like he owned the place. Black shirt, silver watch, same quiet danger in his eyes. How did you get in? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just said, you need to leave this apartment. Tonight. No, I said. I'm not going anywhere. He tilted his head. Your ex is gone now. I frowned. Gone where? He looked at me for a moment before replying. Out of Lagos. Did you hurt him? I asked. He smiled faintly. Does it matter? I stepped back, shaking. It matters to me. Then you shouldn't have called me, he said simply. I wanted to scream, but something about his calmness made it impossible. He stood up, walked closer, and handed me another card. This one had my full name printed on it, Olivia Brooks. Under it, a new address. What is this? Your new apartment. Safer, cleaner, fewer memories. I looked up at him, scared and angry. I didn't ask for your help. He smiled slightly. No, you begged for it. That night you grabbed my hand. I felt tears in my eyes. That was a mistake. He stared at me. No, Olivia. That was destiny. He left that night. No goodbye. No threat. Just silence. But the next morning, I woke up to find a brown envelope under my door. Apartment keys, cash, and a short note. Move today. Don't make me repeat myself. I didn't even want to open it. But something deep inside told me to obey. By evening, I packed a few clothes, grabbed my brother's old backpack, and took a taxi to the address. The building was in Ikoyi, tall, clean, and quiet, the kind of place that smells like money and privacy. The doorman greeted me like he was expecting me. Good evening, Miss Olivia. Welcome. I blinked. You know me? He smiled. Mr. Theodore gave instructions. My stomach tightened. When I entered the apartment, I almost cried. White furniture, new TV, air conditioning, food in the fridge, and a small note on the counter. Don't look for me. You're safe now. I wanted to feel relief, but all I felt was confusion. Who exactly was this man? And what did he want from me? Because in Lagos, people don't give protection for free. There's always a bill coming later. That night, I sat on the couch staring at the city lights through the window. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't scared of Levi. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just traded one kind of prison for another. The city below looked alive. Cars honking, streetlights glowing, people shouting, but up here, it was silent. Too silent. I closed my eyes and whispered, "God, please, what have I done?" And somewhere deep inside, I could almost hear that calm voice again. "You grabbed my hand, Olivia. Now, let's see where it leads." If you're still watching this story, please click subscribe, because in the next part, the truth about Theodore will finally begin to unfold. It took me a full week to admit that I wasn't just being helped. I was being watched. Everywhere I turned in that Ikoyi apartment, I felt his presence. Theodore. He hadn't called again since leaving that note, but I knew he was around. Every morning, fresh groceries appeared at my door. Every night, the light outside the building flickered once before going off like a signal. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of that black SUV parked 2 streets away, and I'd whisper to myself, "He's here again." At first, I tried to fight it. I went out more, tried to make friends, even applied for a new restaurant job on the island. But the first day I showed up for the interview, the manager looked confused. "Miss Olivia Brooks?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He frowned. "Ah, we received a message that you're no longer available." My mouth fell open. He shrugged. "Some representative from M7 Security." My chest tightened. "Theodore." I smiled awkwardly and left. When I got outside, the sun was hot, but my body felt cold. That was the moment I realized I was living in his shadow. Later that night, I stormed into the living room, grabbed my phone, and called the number he had used before. He picked up on the second ring. "I was waiting for this call," he said. I didn't let him speak. "What's wrong with you? You can't control my life. You told them not to hire me?" He was silent for a moment. Then he said calmly, "You don't need to work." "I do," I shouted. "You don't own me." He chuckled softly. "Olivia, you forget something. You grabbed my hand. That night, you chose safety, but safety isn't free. I went quiet, angry, and scared at once. I never asked for your money." "I know," he said. "That's why you deserve it." His tone wasn't threatening. It was gentle, but powerful. The kind of tone that makes you obey before realizing you're surrendering. I said, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said. "Just stay alive." Then the line went dead. Hey viewers, if you're still watching this story, please click subscribe. Because sometimes the person who saves you doesn't want your love, they want your obedience. The next morning, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, a young man in a suit stood there holding a phone. "Miss Olivia?" "Yes." "Boss wants to speak with you." He handed me the phone. It was Theodore. "Good morning," he said. I sighed. "What now?" "I'm sending someone to take you to lunch." "I'm not hungry." He ignored that. "Dress decently." I said I'm not. He ended the call. I stood there, speechless. The young man smiled politely. "I'll be downstairs in 15 minutes, ma." 15 minutes later, I found myself inside that same black SUV again. The driver said nothing. The air smelled of leather and silence. We drove to Eco Atlantic, to one of those private seaside restaurants where everyone talks in whispers and the waiters act like ghosts. When I stepped out, Theodore was already there. Sitting at an outside table overlooking the water, wearing a crisp white shirt, sunglasses, and that same quiet danger. He smiled faintly as I approached. "You look nervous?" he said. "I am," I replied honestly. "You scare me." He nodded, like he expected that answer. "Good," he said. "Fear keeps you alive." I sat down slowly. "Why am I here?" He gestured toward the waiter. "Eat first." I stared at the food. "I'm not hungry." He raised a brow. "You sure?" I sighed and picked up the fork. We sat in silence for a few minutes, only the sound of waves and forks clinking. Finally, I said, "What exactly do you do, Theodore?" He smiled. "I manage people." "What kind of people?" "The kind who don't like to be managed." I frowned. "That's not an answer." He leaned closer, his voice quiet. "Let's just say I make sure certain men in Lagos remember their place." I stared at him. "So, you're like a gangster?" He smiled. "That's such an ugly word." My heart skipped. "Then what are you?" He paused, then said softly, "I'm the kind of man you shouldn't have touched." After lunch, we drove around the island. He didn't talk much, but he noticed everything. When a Danfo driver nearly hit us, he said calmly, "People in this city mistake chaos for freedom." I asked, "And you? What do you mistake it for?" He turned his head slightly. "Opportunity." That night, when I returned home, there was a small black box on my table. Inside was a new phone, a gold wristwatch, and a short note. Use this line. I'll know when you're in danger. I dropped everything back in the box. I'm not using any of this, I whispered. But deep down, I knew I would, because no matter how much I hated it, a part of me felt safer knowing he was somewhere close. And that was the scariest part. The next few weeks blurred into one long movie. He started sending his men to follow me, everywhere. To the salon, to the supermarket, even to church. At first, I confronted them. Tell your boss to stop this nonsense. They always replied the same thing, we're just doing our job, Ma. That night, I stormed into the living room and shouted at the ceiling, Theodore, enough! I'm not your project! A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. Unknown number, open your door. I froze. No. Another message. Now. The knock came exactly 2 seconds later, 3 times, sharp and controlled. I opened it. He was standing there, no guards, no smile, no glasses, just him. You've been shouting my name, he said quietly. I glared. Because you're suffocating me. He stepped closer. I'm keeping you alive? By taking my life apart? He sighed, then sat on the couch like it was his own house. Do you have any idea how many people are looking for you right now? What do you mean? He looked at me. Your ex owed money. Big money. He used your name to open fake accounts. Now the people he scammed think you're part of it. My mouth fell open. That's not possible. He shrugged. I fixed it, but that's why you can't go anywhere for now. I sat down slowly, my heart racing. So I'm basically under house arrest? He smirked. You make it sound harsh. Let's call it protective custody. I laughed bitterly. You're insane, he smiled faintly. I've been called worse. He stood up, walked toward the balcony, and looked out at the city lights. Then he said something that chilled me. Lagos eats weak people alive, Olivia. I just make sure I'm the one doing the eating. I stared at him, trying to understand this man who scared everyone but somehow looked at me like I was fragile. What do you want from me, Theodore? I asked. He turned around. Nothing, he said softly. You remind me of someone I couldn't save. I didn't know what to say. For a second, he looked human. Then his phone rang. He answered with one word, handle it. He slipped the phone into his pocket and turned to leave. I have business, he said. Stay inside tonight. And just like that, he walked out. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence and the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the air. The following evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know the truth. I grabbed the gold wristwatch he'd given me and inspected it. It looked normal, until I noticed a tiny red dot under the clasp. A tracker. My body went cold. He wasn't just protecting me. He was tracking me. I threw the watch against the wall, breathing hard. Then the phone he gave me buzzed. Why did you break the watch? I froze. How did you know? I whispered. I see everything, Olivia. I felt my knees weaken. You're a monster, he replied. Maybe, but I'm your monster. You can't really breathe when your life doesn't belong to you anymore. One evening, I decided to walk down to the supermarket by the gate. I wore a simple dress, no makeup, nothing that screamed attention. The security man smiled. Evening, Ma. Evening, I replied, happy to breathe real air again. But I hadn't reached the second street before I noticed it. The black SUV, parked just opposite the road, same number plate. I sighed. Really? When I came out of the store 15 minutes later, it was still there. And when I got back to the compound, the driver nodded politely at me, rolled the window down and said, Boss says not to stay out after dark. I wanted to slap him. Tell your boss I'm not his prisoner. He just smiled faintly. We don't keep prisoners, Ma. We keep assets safe. Assets. That was what I was now, a valuable item. That night, I called Theodore again. He didn't pick. So I sent a message. Stop following me. I don't belong to you. He didn't reply. But at exactly midnight, my phone pinged. Theodore. Sleep, Olivia. You're safest when you dream. That evening, I was pacing the living room when the front door opened. No knock. No permission. Theodore walked in like he owned both the apartment and my lungs. You're angry, he said simply. I glared at him. You had men following me again. He didn't deny it. You're safer that way. I don't care about safe, I snapped. I want freedom. He studied me quietly, then said, freedom doesn't exist in my world. Then I don't want your world. He smiled faintly. Too late, Olivia. He started walking around the room, eyes scanning like he was searching for something invisible. I told you before, he said, voice calm. I protect what's mine. I crossed my arms. And who made me yours? He turned sharply. You did. That night at Yaba. I laughed bitterly. So because I grabbed your hand, I signed a lifetime contract? He didn't laugh. He just stared at me until I looked away. Do you know who I am? He asked softly. I whispered, I don't care anymore. He nodded slowly. Then maybe you should. I started putting the pieces together. And one day, I finally got my answer. It happened at his house, or what he called the office. He'd invited me for dinner, said it was a quiet evening. When I arrived, the mansion looked like a movie scene. Long driveway, guards everywhere, chandelier lights bouncing off glass walls. He was waiting for me in the dining room, wearing black. We ate quietly, barely talking. Then suddenly one of his men burst in. Sir, problem at the warehouse. Theodore stood instantly. Who? Rico's boys, sir. They hit our trucks at Apapa. My heart skipped. Warehouse? Trucks? Theodore turned to me. Stay here. I stood up. Wait, what's happening? He gave me that calm, deadly look. Don't open the door for anyone. Then he left. Within seconds, the whole house changed. Men rushed out. Cars started. Engines roared. I ran to the window just in time to see a line of black SUVs leaving the compound. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. On each car, that same silver M7 symbol. It wasn't a company. It was a syndicate. I waited hours. Every sound outside made me jump. I imagined bullets, police sirens, blood. Then around 3 a.m., he returned. His shirt was slightly torn, his arm bleeding. He walked in silently, took off his jacket, and poured himself a drink. I whispered, Are you okay? He nodded. Handled. I wanted to ask what handled meant, but his eyes said not to. Instead, I walked closer, my voice soft. You're bleeding. He looked at the wound like it wasn't even his. It's fine. I grabbed a towel, soaked it, and pressed it gently to his arm. He watched me quietly. For the first time, his expression softened. He said, You shouldn't be here, Olivia. Then let me go, I whispered. He shook his head. You'd walk into a world that doesn't forgive curiosity. What world? I asked. He looked at me, eyes dark and deep. The world that owns me. I cleaned the wound in silence. Then I said quietly, You scare me, but I also feel safe when you're around. What does that mean? He smiled sadly. It means you're starting to understand me. I wanted to ask more, but my throat was tight. He stood up slowly, placed his hand under my chin, and said, Fear is healthy. It keeps the line between love and danger visible. Then he walked away, leaving me with shaking hands and a heart that couldn't decide which side of that line it belonged to. 2 days later, news broke on TV. Businessman found dead near 3rd Mainland Bridge. Sources linked death to ongoing port disputes. The photo flashed briefly. It was Levi, my ex-husband. My breath caught. I sank to the floor. Theodore's words echoed in my head. He hurt you. That was enough reason. I felt sick. I grabbed my phone and called him. He picked up instantly. Olivia, you did it, didn't you? He didn't answer. I shouted, Tell me you didn't kill him. Silence. Then he said softly, He was already dead long before he hit the water. I just finished the process. Tears filled my eyes. You call that justice? He said, I call it balance. I started thinking of escape again. Still, I had to try. I waited until Friday, the day his men usually rotated shifts. I knew the patterns now. The first guard always dozed around midnight. The second always went to the gate to smoke. So I packed a small bag, passport, cash, 1 change of clothes, and waited. By 11:55 p.m., the compound was quiet. My heart was pounding so loud I thought the walls would hear it. I crept down the stairs, avoiding the spots that creaked. When I reached the door, I whispered, God, please. I stepped outside. The air smelled like freedom, salty, humid, fragile. I walked fast, almost running. When I reached the main road, I waved at a passing taxi. Please, Epé Junction, I said quickly. The driver looked half asleep. At this time, madam? Yes. Please, just drive. He shrugged and started the car. Halfway through the journey, I looked behind. No black SUV. For the first time in months, I smiled. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart dropped. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a message popped up. You think I wouldn't notice? I turned pale. The driver glanced at me. Madam, you okay? Please, just drive faster. Another message came. You're brave, Olivia, but not careful. I shouted, Stop the car! The driver slammed the brake. I jumped out and ran. Shoes off. Bag clutched to my chest. Barefoot on Lagos asphalt. I didn't stop running until I reached a small roadside church with its gate open. I ran inside, fell to the ground, and started crying. Hey viewers, if you're still here, click subscribe, because this is the moment where love, fear, and fate collide, and none of them win. Madam, what's wrong? A woman's voice asked. I looked up, a middle-aged cleaner holding a mop. Please, I whispered, I just need to stay here for a while. She nodded, eyes kind. Stay, no one will disturb you. I hid behind one of the benches and prayed for dawn, but dawn came with headlights, black SUV. I froze. Before I could move, the church gate opened quietly. Footsteps, then that voice. Calm, familiar, terrifying. Olivia. I turned slowly. Theodore stood there in a dark coat, looking exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept either. I didn't mean to scare you, he said softly. You tracked me again, I whispered. He sighed. You were running barefoot through the streets at midnight. Lagos isn't kind to lost people. I swallowed hard. Then let it be unkind, at least it'll be honest. He walked closer. You can't live without protection now. You know too much. I laughed bitterly. Then maybe I'll forget. I'll forget everything about you. He shook his head slowly. You can't. I made sure of that. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He didn't answer. We stood there, facing each other in the dim light of the church. He said finally, when I met you that night, you weren't supposed to be mine. You were supposed to be gone like the others. Others? I whispered. He looked down, hands in pockets. I don't do attachments. They make men like me weak. But you, he looked up, eyes soft but heavy. You reminded me of peace I no longer believed in. My eyes burned. Then why cage me? Because peace doesn't survive freedom. I took a deep breath. You killed Levi. You tracked me. You control me. And you call that peace? He didn't move. I call it survival. Tears filled my eyes. I don't want survival, Theodore. I want my life back. He smiled sadly. Your life ended the day you grabbed my hand. The silence between us stretched. Then he said quietly, I'll let you go. I blinked. What? He stepped back slowly. Leave Lagos, tonight. My men will not stop you. I stared at him, shocked. What's the catch? He smiled faintly. No catch. Just don't ever look back. If you do, I'll come for you. I nodded slowly. You mean that? He nodded. Completely. By morning, I was gone. I boarded a small bus heading to Benin City, wearing sunglasses and a borrowed hoodie. Every face in that bus looked ordinary. Mothers with babies, traders, students. But I kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see his SUV. Hours passed. No sign of him. For the first time, I felt almost free. 2 months later, I was living in a small town near Asaba, working at a hair salon. No trackers, no strange men, no black cards. I rented a one-room apartment and learned how to breathe again. Some nights, I'd wake up sweating, dreaming of his voice. But every morning I told myself, you made it out. That evening, I walked home slowly. The sky was turning orange, the wind warm against my skin. For the first time in a while, I didn't feel fear. Until I saw it. Parked across the street, a black SUV. My chest tightened. No one got out. No windows rolled down, just silence. The car lights blinked twice, once, then again, the same signal I'd seen the night after Yaba Market. I stood there frozen, tears in my eyes. Then the car pulled away, disappearing into the sunset. That night, I lay in bed with the window open, listening to the crickets outside. And even though I was miles away from Lagos, I whispered into the dark, thank you, Theodore, for the danger that kept me alive. Because some stories don't end with peace. They end with awareness. The kind that reminds you, not every escape means freedom. Sometimes it just means you've learned how to run with your chains quietly. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below, tell us what you think about Olivia's story, and don't forget to check the right corner of your screen for more powerful stories from Story and Soul. See you soon!